My foster mother tore my college acceptance letter to shreds, saying, "This isn't meant for you." Then I found my birth father's letter discovering I was the daughter of a billionaire. The Georgetown University emblem scattered across our linoleum floor like confetti. Miss Reynolds, the woman who'd cashed government checks for raising me for 11 years, stood over the paper fragments, her thin lips twisted into a smile that never reached her eyes. "Full scholarship? Who do you think you are?" She crushed a piece under her heel. "College is for real families' children. You are staying here to help with the new fosters coming next month." I'd hidden the acceptance letter for weeks, knowing this would happen. What I hadn't anticipated was the hollow feeling in my chest, not sadness, but a strange emptiness where hurt should be. "I turn 18 next week," I said quietly, kneeling together the torn pieces. "You can't legally make me stay." Her laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. "And go where, Lily? With what money? Who'd want you?" She yanked me up by my arm, fingernails digging crescents into my skin. "Your own mother didn't even want you. She left you at a fire station like garbage." I'd heard this story my entire life, how I was unwanted, discarded, lucky to have a roof over my head, even if it came with cold meals and colder words. But something about today, graduation day, when every other senior had family cheering in the auditorium while I sat alone, hardened something inside me. "I'm leaving," I whispered, more to myself than to her. Miss Reynolds shoved me toward the hallway. "Pack if you want, you'll be back when you are hungry." She headed for the kitchen, where my foster father would be counting this month's stipend checks. "Don't take anything we bought you." That left me with exactly 3 outfits, a backpack, and a small wooden box containing everything I knew about myself: my birth certificate, the hospital bracelet, and a tattered envelope the social worker had given me on my 16th birthday, supposedly found with me but deemed not important enough to share until then. I'd never opened it, afraid of what rejection might lie inside. But now, sitting on my bare mattress, what more did I have to lose? The envelope contained a single page of expensive stationery and a small silver key. The handwriting was strong, decisive, nothing like what I imagined from someone abandoning their child. "Walk, my dearest Olivia. Glen, if you are reading this, something has gone terribly wrong. You were never meant to leave my side. You are my heir, my heart, my legacy. They have taken you from me, but I will find you if I cannot. This key opens safety deposit box number 1708 at First National Bank on Riverside Drive. Everything I have is yours. Trust no one until you find James Harrington, my attorney. The address is on the back. *Sen. I love you more than my life itself. *Son, your father, Edward Blackwood." My hands trembled as I flipped the paper over. There was an address for a law firm in Manhattan, over 2,000 miles away from our small Arizona town. Edward Blackwood. The name meant nothing to me, but a quick search on my cracked phone screen made my heart stop. Edward Blackwood, technology magnate and philanthropist, had died 3 weeks ago. His fortune, estimated at $4.7 billion, and according to this letter, I was his daughter, not Lily Reynolds, the throwaway foster kid, but Olivia Blackwood, heir to an empire. From the kitchen came the sound of Miss Reynolds laughing, probably counting the money she'd collected for housing the unwanted child she'd convinced was worthless. I slipped the key onto the cheap graduation day necklace I'd bought myself, touched the letter into my pocket, and grabbed my backpack. The hardwood floors creaked under my feet as I moved toward the back door, pausing only to take my high school diploma from where I'd proudly displayed it on the refrigerator. This wasn't running away. This was running toward something, a truth that had been kept from me my entire life. As I stepped outside into the warm evening air, one question burned in my mind. If my father had been searching for me, who had made sure he never found me? The Greyhound station smelled like desperate dreams and abandoned plans. I counted my savings. $843.27 from 3 years of hiding away portions of my fast food paychecks, where the Reynolds couldn't find them. "You sure you want one way, honey?" I nodded. There was nothing behind me worth returning to. 57 hours later, dizzy with exhaustion and hunger, I stumbled out of Port Authority into Manhattan's overwhelming noise and height. The address on the letter led me to a gleaming skyscraper with Harrington, Baber, and Associates occupying the top 5 floors. The security guard eyed my wrinkled clothes suspiciously. "Appointment. I need to see James Harrington. It's about Edward Blackwood." Something in the name unlocked doors. Within minutes, I was escorted up to the 52nd floor and left in a conference room with walls of glass overlooking a city that seemed built of light and possibility. A tall man with silver temples appeared, extending his hand. "I am James Harrington. It's Blackwood." "Actually," I said, surprising myself with my certainty. "Olivia Blackwood." His expression changed instantly, shock, then careful neutrality. "May I see some identification?" I handed him my birth certificate, Lily Ann Reynolds, and Edward's letter. "The key?" he asked quietly. I lifted the silver key from around my neck. "I haven't had a chance to find the bank. That won't be necessary." James sat heavily examining the letter through narrowed eyes. "I wrote this with Edward 17 years ago after your disappearance. We prepared for every contingency except," he looked up at me, "shut his death before finding you." Disappearance, the word hung between us. I wasn't abandoned. James shook his head slowly. "Olivia, you were kidnapped from your nursery when you were 6 months old. Your father spent millions trying to find 2 private investigators, rewards, even psychics near the end. After your mother died from grief 3 years later, finding you became his obsession. The floor seemed to drop beneath me, kidnapped. But I was left at a fire station in Arizona. That's what my file says." "Your file is a fabrication." James touched his computer screen, bringing up newspaper headlines I'd never seen. "Brigwood I Wood. I Tire missing $10 in the mession Ari word at en Brickwood Gabaluwood Kid 8 piping. New liads in a rise wallowed when the sport sherman torned. Baby abandoned after 5 years. Akinor father never stopped looking. But the trail went cold." James continued. "The fire station drop-off was staged. By the time investigators traced it, you'd already been processed into the foster system under a different name and birth date." My mind reeled. "But why ransom? No ransom demand ever came." Edward believed it was corporate espionage, someone wanting to hurt him by taking what he loved most. James hesitated. "Or perhaps something more personal. Your father had enemies and a complex family situation." "Family situation?" "Edward remarried 6 years after your mother's death. His new wife, Veronica, brought 2 children into the marriage. Your step-so, I suppose. Charlotte is 25, Marcus is 20. His expression darkened. "They're expecting to divide Edward's estate. They don't know about you or the provisions in his will." "What provisions?" James opened a drawer and removed a thick envelope sealed with wax. "Edward always believed you were alive. His will stipulates that if you were found within 5 years of his death, verified by DNA, you would inherit the controlling interest in Blackwood Tellingings and the family estate." My hands trembled. "And if I was found now, then everything changes for the Blackwood household." He slid the envelope across the table. "This contains your father's final message to you and instructions for what comes next." "But Olivia," his voice grew quiet, "claiming your birthright won't be easy. Veronica Blackwood is not a woman who surrenders power willingly. I was raised by people people who treated me like a paycheck, I said, straightening my shoulders. I'm not afraid of difficult. James studied me, something like recognition flickering in his eyes. You have his determination. Edward would have been proud. He pressed a button on his desk phone. Bring in the DNA kit. As we waited, I opened the envelope with unsteady fingers. Inside was a photograph of a handsome man with my same green eyes holding a baby Baber with an expression of absolute adoration. When can I see where he lived? I asked, unable to tear my eyes from the image where I was born. Tonight, if you wish. James leaned forward. But understand this. Once you enter Blackwood Manor as Edward's daughter, you enter a world where wealth and danger are intimate companions. Veronica and her children have enjoyed immense privilege for over a decade. Your appearance threatens everything they have. I've spent my life being told I was nothing, I said, placing the photo carefully back in the envelope. I need to know who I really am. 4 hours later, after a blood test, a hot meal, and clothes that actually fit, I watched Manhattan's skyline give way to the manicured landscapes of Connecticut. James drove in silence, occasionally glancing at me as if still disbelieving. As we turned through massive iron gates, a mansion appeared that seemed torn from the pages of a novel. Gray stone and ivy, sprawling wings, gardens that stretched into the distance. Welcome home, Olivia Blackwood, James said softly. Your father's house awaits you. The front doors opened, revealing a stern-faced woman with perfect posture and cold eyes. James, she said, her gaze sliding dismissively over me before stopping at my face with sudden sharp attention. What is the meaning of this? Who is this girl? Veronica, James replied calmly. Allow me to introduce Olivia Blackwood, Edward's daughter. She's come to claim her inheritance. Absolutely preposterous. Veronica's voice could have frozen fire. Edward had no children. This is clearly a con artist. You dredged up, James. I expected better from you. I stood my ground as her eyes dissected me, looking for flaws in my claim and perhaps finding too many similarities to my father for comfort. The DNA will confirm everything, James replied, unruffled. As Edward's attorney, I am obligated to follow his final wishes, which were explicit regarding Olivia. And what wishes might those be? Veronica's French manicured nails tapped against her crossed arms. Perhaps we could discuss this inside, James suggested rather than on the doorstep. With obvious reluctance, Veronica stepped aside. Henderson will show the girl to the east guest wing. You and I can speak in Edward's study. An elderly man appeared, Henderson presumably, with kind eyes that widened slightly at the sight of me. Recognition, I couldn't be sure. This way, miss, he said, his voice carrying the weight of decades of service as I followed him through cavernous halls lined with artwork worth more than everything I'd ever touched in my life. I caught glimpses of the home that should have been my library shelves, stretching to vaulted ceilings, fireplaces large enough to stand in windows overlooking gardens where I might have played as a child. Here we are, Henderson said, opening double doors to reveal a suite larger than the entire Reynolds house. These were the rooms your mother decorated for you before you were taken. My heart lurched. You knew me before? His weathered face softened. I've served the Blackwood family for 47 years, miss. I was here the day you were born and the day you disappeared. He hesitated. If I may say, you have your mother's smile and your father's eyes, but and I, as I remember. I moved to the window, taking in the view of expansive gardens. What were they like, my parents? Your mother, Elizabeth, was kindness itself. A botanical researcher with a passion for rare orchids, he gestured toward the gardens. That greenhouse was her sanctuary. As for your father, Henderson's voice grew warm with memory. Mr. Edward was brilliant, driven, but different after your birth. Softer you were his world, Miss Olivia Henderson. A sharp voice interrupted. A young woman stood in the doorway, her designer clothes and perfect blonde hair shouting old money and older entitlement. Beside her loomed a tall young man with the same cold eyes as Veronica. Charlotte, Henderson acknowledged with a slight bow. And Master Marcus, that will be all. Charlotte dismissed him with a flick of her wrist before turning laser focus on me. So you are the long-lost daughter we're suddenly supposed to believe in. How convenient that you appeared just after father's death. I didn't know he died, I said simply. I didn't even know who he was until yesterday. Marcus snorted. A magical letter, a convenient key, and suddenly you are a Blackwood mother's right? This is absurd. DNA doesn't lie, I replied, feeling a strange calm. Their hostility was familiar territory I'd navigated worse in foster homes. DNA can be manipulated. Charlotte stepped closer, examining me like an insect under glass. And even if you are who you claim, you were raised in what trailer parks? Foster homes, you are hardly Blackwood material. That's enough, Charlotte. James appeared in the doorway. Your stepsister will be staying while we sort out Edward's final arrangements. I suggest you all find a way to coexist peacefully. Stepsister, Marcus laughed. She's nobody, James smiled thinly. Actually, according to your father's will, she's the primary heir to Blackwood Tullingings and this estate contingent on a series of conditions Edward established. The silence that followed was absolute. What conditions? I finally asked. Edward believed that his true heir would not only share his blood but his vision and values. James removed an envelope from his jacket. He established 3 tests to be completed within 30 days. Successfully completing them confirms your position as controlling shareholder of Blackwood Tullingings and owner of this estate. This is insane, Charlotte sputtered. Father left everything to be divided between us. He left you generous trusts, James corrected. The company and estate were always reserved for Olivia should she be found. And if she fails these tests, Marcus asked, a calculating gleam in his eyes, then control passes to the Blackwood Foundation with you 3 as board members. James handed me the envelope. The first test begins tomorrow. I suggest you all get some rest. After they left, I sank onto the edge of the bed, my bed in a room that had waited for me for 17 years. The envelope in my hands contained not just tasks but an identity I'd never known was mine. That night I slept in sheets that cost more than my entire saved income, surrounded by walls that should have witnessed my childhood. The strange contradiction wasn't lost on me. I'd never been richer, yet never felt more at risk. In the morning, Henderson brought breakfast on a silver tray along with a small wrapped package. This arrived for you, Miss Olivia, he said. Unmarked inside was a tarnished silver rattle with my initials and a note in unfamiliar handwriting. Not everyone wanted you to disappear. Watch your back. History repeats. The first test arrived with morning light. A heavy envelope slipped beneath my door. Unplied was a handwritten letter from my father, dated just months before his death. My dearest Olivia *Sen, if you are reading this, I failed in my life's mission to find you before my time ended. For that I can never apologize enough, but I haven't left you defenseless in what will surely be a difficult transition. *Sen, the Blackwood legacy isn't just wealth, it's purpose. Your first test is to understand the foundation of everything we'd built. Our rare earth mining operation in Montana. The Henderson file contains all you need by week's end. Present your findings on sustainable expansion to the board. This isn't just business. It's our family's commitment to responsible stewardship. Fume trust Henderson and James. The circumstances of your disappearance were never clear to me, but I've always suspected it came from within our circle. *Sen, with all my love. of. Asterisk sen your father ate the Henderson file proved to be a massive collection of technical documents delivered by the butler himself, who hovered uncertainly at my door. Henderson, I asked, did my father leave any other guidance? I don't know the first thing about mining or business presentations. His eyes darted down the hallway before he stepped inside, closing the door softly. Miss Olivia, I believe I can help before serving as butler. I was your father's field geologist. The mining operation was my discovery. I stared at him. You are not just a butler? A small smile creased his face. I've been many things in service to the Blackwoods. Edward valued loyalty above credentials. When my knees could no longer handle field work, he brought me here rather than force my retirement. For the next 5 days, we worked in secret. Henderson explained geological surveys and extraction methods while I absorbed everything like parched earth taking rain. We converted my bathroom into a makeshift office, spreading maps across the massive tub and hanging satellite images from shower curtain rods. On the morning of the presentation, I found my door wouldn't open, jammed or locked from outside. Panic rose in my throat until I remembered the servants' passage Henderson had casually mentioned. A hidden door in my closet led to narrow stairs and corridors that threaded through the mansion's walls. I emerged in the kitchen, startling a young woman arranging pastries. Oh, she exclaimed, you must be Miss Olivia. I am Tezage, the chef's daughter. She glanced at the wall clock. Arranged she supposed to be at the boardroom? Exonins already gathered. My door was stuck, I explained, smoothing my borrowed business suit. Mia's eyebrows raised stuck or locked. Charlotte was down here earlier asking strange questions about where your room was located. The boardroom fell silent when I entered 15 minutes late, with Henderson carrying my presentation materials. Veronica sat at the head of the table, flanked by Charlotte and Marcus. James occupied a corner seat, watchful. How kind of you to join us, Veronica said. Though I see you've managed to recruit staff to your cause already. I met her days. Henderson has been extremely helpful in explaining my father's vision for the Montana operation. No. Our father, Marcus corrected with exaggerated patience, was planning to sell that operation. It's outdated technology. Actually, I laid out the first map. According to these surveys, it contains the largest domestic deposit of neodymium in North America, critical for everything from wind turbines to defense systems. Selling would be short-sighted. For the next 40 minutes, I presented Henderson's knowledge as if it were my own, outlining a three-phase sustainable expansion that would triple production while implementing environmental safeguards beyond industry standards. When I finished, the board members murmured among themselves. One elderly gentleman in a bow tie leaned forward. Edward said exactly the same thing 3 months ago. He wanted American manufacturing to have reliable rare earth supplies outside of Chinese control. The girl has his insight. Coincidence? Charlotte dismissed our coaching. The financial projections are her work. Henderson spoke up. I provided context only. James stood. According to Edward's instructions, the board must vote. Does Olivia's presentation demonstrate sufficient understanding of Blackwood's core business? The vote was 10-3 in my favor, with only Veronica, Charlotte, and Marcus opposed. Congratulations, James said afterward. Your father would be proud. As the boardroom emptied, I noticed a man lingering 40-ish with sharp features and watchful eyes. He approached once we were alone. Jason Wolfe, he introduced himself. Your father's head of security. We need to talk about your door didn't jam itself this morning, and you should know. The brake lines on your scheduled car were tampered with last night. A cold weight settled in my stomach. Are you saying someone's trying to prevent test completion? Oressa, his expression revealed nothing. An Abanchan in this house doesn't want you to succeed, Miss Blackwood. And they're escalating. That evening, a second package appeared on my bed. A newspaper clipping from 17 years ago about my kidnapping, with my mother's face circled and 3 words scrawled across it. She knew why. The second test arrived exactly 7 days after the first. This time, hand delivered by James. Your father's personal journals, he explained, placing a leather-bound stack on my desk. He wants you to review them and complete the technology prototype he was working on before his death. You have 10 days. I am not an engineer, I protested. I barely passed high school physics. James smiled. Edward believed true intelligence adapts. He left you resources to draw upon. The journals revealed a side of my father I hadn't expected, passionate, sometimes poetic entries about sustainable energy, interspersed with memories of my mother and notes about the search for me. His final project was a residential battery system that could store solar energy more efficiently than anything on the market. After 3 days of struggling to make sense of the technical specifications, I was ready to admit defeat. A soft knock interrupted my frustration. Marcus Blackwood stood at my door, hands in pockets, looking unusually uncomfortable. Stuck? He asked, nodding toward the scattered papers. Completely, I admitted, too exhausted for pretense. He hesitated, then stepped inside. Look, I still think this whole lost air situation is bizarre, but he picked up one of the circuit diagrams. This is basically my area of expertise. I have a PhD in electrical engineering from RT, and you were offering to help me. I couldn't hide my suspicion. Why? Curiosity, he said with a shrug that seemed too casual. I want to see what he was working on. Father never shared this project with me against my better judgment. I let him review the materials. To my surprise, Marcus transformed before my eyes, his arrogance replaced by genuine intellectual excitement as he pored over my father's notes. This is revolutionary, he murmured. The crystalline structure he's describing would increase storage capacity by 300% while reducing fire risk to nearly zero. For the next week, we worked together in uneasy alliance. Despite myself, I began to see Marcus not as the enemy but as someone equally caught in Veronica's web, pushed to be perfect, punished for showing weakness. Why did your mother marry my father? I asked on the 6th night as we soldered components for the prototype. Marcus didn't look up. Money, power, status. Why else? Did she love him? His hand stilled. Veronica doesn't love. She acquires on the night before the prototype demonstration. I returned from dinner to find my room ransacked, papers everywhere, the prototype missing. Panic seized me until my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Greenhouse. Now the vast glass structure stood illuminated at the garden's edge, humid air fogging the windows, and played. Marcus waited beside our intact prototype. Thought it would be safer here, he explained. Charlotte's been asking questions. You are protecting me now. I couldn't hide my surprise. I am protecting the project, he corrected, though without conviction. And maybe, he ran a hand through his hair, maybe I am tired of being Veronica's puppet. She's not who you think. What do you mean? He looked pained. After the demonstration tomorrow. If you succeed, I'll tell you everything. The next morning, before an audience of Blackwood Tullinging's executives, I presented the battery prototype. It performed flawlessly, storing and releasing energy at rates that made even the skeptics murmur with approval. My father's vision, I concluded, was to make renewable energy practical for every household. This technology does exactly that. The vote was unanimous in my favor. Even Veronica abstained rather than oppose me outright. The shift in power was becoming something palpable that evening, Marcus failed to appear at our agreed meeting place. After waiting an hour, I returned to the mansion to find Henderson waiting with a grave expression. Master Marcus has been in an accident, he said quietly. His car went off Alpine Road on his way back from the tech campus. Is he intensive care? It's very serious. Henderson's eyes held warning. Miss Charlotte is saying you tampered with his car revenge for their earlier treatment of you. That's absurd. I would never, of course not, Henderson agreed. But it's convenient for those who would see you fail the final test. My phone chimed with a text from James Veronica, filing for emergency injunction to suspend testing process due to safety concerns. Board meeting tomorrow. As I sank into a chair trying to process this turn of events, Henderson placed a small wooden box before me. Master Marcus asked me to give you this if anything happened to him. He came to me right after your demonstration, quite agitated. Inside the box was a USB drive and a note in Marcus's handwriting. The accident wasn't an accident. Check security footage from the night your mother died was there. The hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and fear. Marcus lay on conscious machines, tracking his vital signs with steady eye gas. His face, usually animated with arrogance or enthusiasm, was slack and pale beneath an oxygen mask. I'd slipped in during shift change, avoiding the private security Veronica had stationed outside his room. According to the nurses, she'd restricted all visitors except family, a category she made clear did not include me. I know you didn't want to help me at first, I whispered to Marcus's still form, but I am going to find out who did this to you. A soft sound made me turn. Charlotte stood in the doorway, her perfect composure cracked to reveal something almost human beneath. You shouldn't be here, she said, but made no move to call security. He helped me, I replied simply. I owed him a visit. Charlotte approached the bed, adjusting Marcus's blanket with unexpected tenderness. The doctors say if he wakes up, there might be brain damage from the oxygen deprivation. When I corrected. When he wakes up. For a moment. We stood in strange solidarity on opposite sides of the bed. Then Charlotte spoke, her voice barely audible. I heard what they're saying, that you did this, but Marcus texted me after your demonstration. He was excited about working with you. She met my eyes. This wasn't you. No, I agreed. But I think I know who it might have been. Back at the mansion, I connected Marcus's USB drive to my laptop. It contained years of private surveillance footage. Apparently, my paranoid father had security cameras installed throughout the estate that even his security team didn't know about. I searched for the date of my mother's death, allegedly from an accidental fall down the grand staircase, while under medication for postpartum depression. What I found froze my blood. The footage showed Veronica and my mother in heated argument at the top of the stairs. My mother turned to walk away and Veronica's hands shot out, shoving her violently. As my mother tumbled down, Veronica watched for precisely 30 seconds before calling for help, her face a mask of calculated grief. Veronica meeting with a man I didn't recognize 6 months before my kidnapping. Veronica removing documents from my father's safe the night he died. Veronica instructing Charlotte to keep Marcus under control after he began helping me. As I sat in shocked silence, another file caught my attention dated the morning of Marcus's accident. The garage camera showed a figure tampering with his car, face carefully angled away from surveillance. But when they turned to leave, a distinctive bracelet flashed in the light, a custom piece I'd seen daily on Veronica's wrist. My door burst open without warning. 2 security guards flanked Veronica, whose cold smile didn't reach her eyes. Olivia dear, she said, I am afraid to hear has been an emergency board vote. Given the tragic accident involving Marcus and concerns about household safety, your testing period has been suspended pending investigation. You tried to kill your own son, I said quietly. Her smile didn't waver. What an outrageous accusation. The stress must be affecting you. I have footage, I continued, turning my laptop to face her, of Marcus's accident, of my mother's murder, of everything. For just a moment, fear flickered across her face before hardening into resolve. Veronica Blackwood, you are under arrest for the attempted murder of Marcus Blackwood and conspiracy in the death of Elizabeth Blackwood. As the officers read Veronica her rights, James explained Marcus regained consciousness an hour ago. His first words were a full confession of what Veronica told him about your mother's death and your kidnapping. Fraternally, his accident sparked a crisis of conscience. She kidnapped me. I asked pieces falling into place, arranged it, James clarified. After murdering your mother, she realized your father's devotion to finding you would prevent her from ever controlling the Blackwood fortune. So you became a ghost, a child who existed in memory but would never be found. As Veronica was led away, her final words hung in the air like poison. You'll never be a Blackwood. You are still just a nobody playing dress up in a world you don't understand. That night, Henderson brought a final envelope, the third test from my father. Ink high was a single question. What will you do with the power you've inherited? My answer would determine everything. The media called it the Blackwood succession saga. Billionaire's long-lost daughter reclaims her birthright while exposing a decades-long conspiracy of murder, kidnapping, and fraud. For 2 weeks, I couldn't open a newspaper or turn on a television without seeing my own face staring back. Cameras followed me from the courthouse, where I testified against Veronica, to board meetings, where I was officially recognized as controlling shareholder, to charity events, where New York society sized up the foster child turned Iris. With calculating eyes, James handled the legal aftermath with surgical precision. Veronica faced multiple charges, including 2 counts of attempted murder, conspiracy to commit kidnapping and fraud. Charlotte, proven uninvolved in her mother's schemes, retreated to Europe, and Marcus was healing slowly. The oxygen deprivation had affected his short-term memory, but his doctors were optimistic about recovery. I visited daily, often reading aloud from our father's journals or discussing modifications to our battery prototype, which was now in development for commercial release. On the morning of the board's quarterly meeting, my first as chairwoman, I stood in my father's study, now mine, trying to calm my racing heart. The third test had required a comprehensive vision for Blackwood's future, and today I would present it to the people who would help make it reality. A soft knock announced Henderson, who had refused my offer to retire him into luxury, insisting his place was running the household. The car is ready, Miss Olivia, he said, then hesitated. Here's a visitor asking to see you. She's quite insistent. Quote, a woman waited in